want to introduce Kazuki Sawano. Sawanoi, who's the president of the club. And we have some business that we have to get through this evening before we begin. So our first order of business is we do have officer nominees, and we need to show by a voice approval that people approve of this slate of nominees. None of these positions right now have any other candidate.
Sorry, you are stuck.
So, but can I have a voice who approves of this slate? All right. And those who object? So there's our officer nominees are now. All right, now we've got 2020 area trustee nominees. And again, we have a few openings for those who may want to join our fun meetings and events. As far as I know, there are no other nominees or opposing nominees. So can we go by a voice vote again? All those in favor of this slate of area trustees, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Thank you. There are our area trustees for next year.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Kazuki Sawanoi. It's a kind of hard to pronounce it. The last name, it's very rare Japanese name, but the American friend told me it sounds like so annoying. So you can remember Kazuki so annoying. Anyway, that's the easy way to remember my name. And let's start with the finance report highlights. Actually, Johnny put together the slide. He's here, but I think his voice we cannot hear loudly, so I will talk on behalf of him. So we have about roughly 2,500 donations, dollar donations, which is almost about the same as the membership amount. Membership, we have about 250 members and $10 per member. So we have almost about the same amount, which is very, very nice. And this has been the trend past couple of years. So we really appreciate, your support. And we kind of put together in our budget. So we have about roughly $5,000 per annual budget right now. So we have, 245 paid members, which jumped up recently after we did a door hanger flyer, about 70, membership we received. And recently we had, events. So I think those are, people appreciate and become a member. So we'd like to, our goal is 400. It's a, aspiration, but this area has about 2,600 homes, so 400 is not that large. And I think a long time ago, we used to have much bigger membership. So I think we want to create a, stronger foundation. So that's our goal. So we continue, so please, if you have neighbors, please recommend to become a member. That'll be great. And we have been carefully spending. So forecasted is about 26% under budget. So we are not spending too much. Okay, next slide. So Johnny put nice way. So left-hand side is revenue. So roughly, half membership, half donations. And then we spend on the right-hand side events about $1,100. Spring egg hunt and ice cream social, different kinds. This after pandemic, we started doing in-person event this year, so we spent some money. And the door hanger costs printing. But mostly large effort was volunteers. Huge number of volunteers helped, distributing. So that was really good. And the storage, we have heated storage in the Newcastle, and we have egg shells for the egg hunt and the picnic stuff. And recently we took the leftover books from the book swap. Yeah, it costs $75 per month, and we debated it's really, worth, but right now it's very convenient. It's for us to have easy access, instead of having in someone's shed. So we also always look for, maybe the less expensive solution. So your, suggestion will be welcome, but for now we keep the, storage. And miscellaneous spending about, $290. So that's the, roughly that spend. So overall, I think financially we are really healthy, kind of underspending. So I think we can plan more, but we are a volunteer organization. So to organize something, we need a volunteer. So we have to balance. If we plan too many activities, it's a little bit challenging. So I think slowly need to build. But we are in a good position. And also during the pandemic, we kind of saved money. So in our saving, we have almost, I think, $8,000 or almost $10,000. So we can, we can, if we have a good plan, we can, invest in certain ways. So your ideas are welcome too. Okay. Yep. Okay, so just want to highlight our activities this year we had since spring. In June, we had a ice cream social, about 70 people. Some of you are there. And it was, yeah, it was really fun event, nice gathering. We had a good time and, socialize each other. It was really, low investment. It was really cheap. And we underestimated ice creams. We quick gone in first 15 minutes. We have to check again quickly, buy more. And just recently in October, we had a planting party at the corner of the dental center. And we planted 300 bulbs, and we put covered with the bark. So coming spring, it's gonna be interesting. We have different kinds. So we call mystery bulbs. We lost track of what kind of bulbs. So we never know what kind of flower. But it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, we did it in a kind of rain, so it was fun. And this was recently also Truck or Treat. This was a collaboration with Swim and Tennis Club. And we did mostly advertisement. And I participated as a kind of jail person. And maybe I didn't make a good impression for the kids. President is in jail, for corruption or something. And there was a kid with the police uniform, so I couldn't take a picture with him. So I asked him, please. And about, I think, 200 kids showed up. Again, I brought some candies, more than 100, but it was gone in half an hour. So I was panicked that somebody gave me the extra candies. So it was good.
Maybe I would love that, because I was going to say trick or treat is really great for anybody who's in a part of the neighborhood that doesn't get trick or treaters, whether it's a dark part or police streets or whatever, because there are some parts of the neighborhood where people are sad if they don't get trick or treaters, but this is a good thing to participate in. And then also the Heights Elementary had it on the night before.
That's true. Even though there was another one the day before, we still have good. So I think this year kids had a really good time. Lots of candies. And one girl stopped by on the Halloween day, my house, and looked at my face, and I know you're the jail person. She said, "Oops." So it was funny. Yeah. And this was just 2 days ago. We had a book swap event and at the shopping center, and Heidi did a really hard work and surprisingly, we had lots of books, hundreds of books, I think. But half of them are gone. You know, people took a lot too. And later, Mayor Lynn Robinson stopped by. Yeah, she responded to Heidi's email. So it was really nice event. So yeah, so I think we like to build on, you know, this kind of event to help, you know, people engage and know each other. Yeah, so that's we kind of try to develop one part of our, you know, event engagement. Okay, so just for thank you for volunteers. Maybe it's too hard to see, but there are lots of, you know, volunteers involved for the planting party, donated bulbs, and door hanger distribution, and a lot of high school students volunteered, which was really nice. I think they, you know, learn about the community engagement. So I think a really win-win situation.
That saves so many tips.
Yeah. And upcoming events in December, we are planning a Santa tour on December 10th, and the holiday lights. We're gonna do judging on the 12th and 13th. So that's the plan. So yeah, that's the, yep. Okay. And so just a rough idea what I'd like to do in my second term. So basically, I'd like to build a strong foundation of the community. It's still, you know, again, 250 members. We could be more. And I think through the engagement opportunity events, if we know each other, you know, it become, you know, community become more pleasant. And I think we, you know, can trust each other and help each other in times of that challenging time like pandemic or, you know, those or important issues comes up, we can, you know, discuss, you know, important things as a community. So I think my job is to, you know, put the foundation, strong foundation, and get more volunteers as well to, you know, to contribute. My my analogy of the community work is a potluck. You know, in potluck, everybody brings just one dish, you know, but different kinds of dish, small contribution, but everybody, you know, can enjoy. So that's kind of my ideal way of the community. You know, everybody kind of chime in small ways, but as a sum, you know, we can benefit a lot. So hopefully, yeah, that's, and yeah, inform the community of the important issues, you know, when it comes, like today's topic, you know, neighborhood character and the short Plat, those kind of issues, we can become a forum to discuss issues, and also the advocate for the community, you know, when necessary. Yeah, important issues. So that's the idea. So thank you very much for support, and thank you for being here. Yeah, appreciate it.
Oh, sorry. So our next presenter is Frank Klein. Frank raised 2 daughters in Newport Hills with his spouse, kid. He lived here for 22 years, moved to a neighboring community for 17 years, and now has returned to Newport Hills for the past 6 years because he realizes Newport Hills is really the best. Professionally, Frank was a realtor for 43 years before retiring from real estate sales 4 years ago. And during his career, Frank was involved primarily with sales. He also did real estate sales training, teaching of finance, working with development, representing various builders, office management, and mentoring. Please welcome Frank Klein.
Just remember to interject. project.
Project, yes. Good evening, I'm Frank, and thank you for all coming out this evening. My wife and I had been away for a while, and we went out for a walk, and we're walking along. I look at the street and I said, gosh, Ken, I think that's a land use sign up there. And she comments, she says, that's really strange. And I said, yeah, that's really strange. Formal plat that's 50-some years old. And I said, we'll need to check that later. And so when I got home, I did a little digging, and I got my title report out. And sure enough, there was the covenant that I had read many, many times, making sales in Newport Hills, that you can't divide property in Newport Hills. But I also recall from working in Newport Hills that there had been some divisions up here that didn't have the covenant on them at all. And I honestly cannot remember which ones they were. And I suspect they might be Lake Heights, because that was the early and the first, but I'm not sure. So anyway, I got a hold of the application file from the city, and there was a title report in there, and the covenant was in there. So that was what I call awareness. And so Kit and I thought, well, let's walk over and see what they're really doing. So we walked over to see what was really going on. And lo and behold, there are 4 or 5 neighbors standing by the sign. One of them was Wayne Bressler. And I started talking to the neighbors, and everybody was pretty upset about what was going on. One of the gentlemen there, Ken, lived right next door to the project. And I found it real odd, because you'll note that this is the property in question, is lot 5. You notice the street swings this way, but over here off the map, 51st swings this way, 127th, 128th comes up like this, and there are 2 cul-de-sacs in here. And so I got the diagram out and looked at it real close, and they were taking the garage off the existing house and planned to run a driveway down and put a second home back here. Well, from my time working in real estate, Kit and I realized right away that's not even a good design. That's what we call the flag lot. And that was going to put a home in this person's backyard, this person's backyard, this person's backyard, no privacy for the new home being built, this person, this person, this person. There's seven homes, including the ones we built, that would be virtually have their privacy terribly impacted. And so it wasn't even a good design. And so one of the people in the small group at the sign, Wayne, I can't remember who it was, but I believe it was a young man that might be in the community club, suggested that we petition the city and we do it right away. Well, it was, I don't know what it was, Tuesday or something, and we were coming up on Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend. And we couldn't tell how much time we really had to do this, but we better get to go on it. So I was pretty confident that I could write a petition for that, and I did. And we blocked off an area of the community that represented 220 homes, with this home being basically the middle. So we took this back to the museum. So out of the 220 homes that we door knocked on a holiday weekend, we had 133 people sign objecting, and almost all the rest of them were home. we had some people that we had a language barrier with, and we really could not effectively communicate what we were trying to do. And we had a few people that just felt they didn't know enough about it to object. So that's the way this started. So we had the petition in hand, and I delivered it to the city of Bellevue. And lo and behold, the city of Bellevue has gone all tech. Not only could I not get a receipt for it, they wouldn't even receive it. They wouldn't even take it. So I went home and I digitized it, and I sent it in through their portal. Again, I got no acknowledgement that it went anywhere. I could read all the rules of the portal, and I could tell it was going everywhere, but there is no acknowledgement that anybody really had it. So I pestered the city until I finally got an acknowledgement, and they finally acknowledged that they did have the petition. So in following up with the city, I asked, why were you taking somebody's application for a subdivision or subplat or a division of anything in Newport Hills when you know that that covenant is in place? Well, I knew the answer before I asked the question, but I wanted to hear them say it because I hadn't heard it for several years. I'm retired after all. So they did tell me their pat answer. And their pat answer was that the covenant doesn't belong to the city. The city is a private covenant between the people that live in Newport Hills. It was put on there by the original developer, and we don't have anything to do with it. We pay your taxes. But that was their standard answer, is that that's a civil matter that doesn't have anything to do with us. I've always found that to be a real odd business ethic for the city and a very poor position to take. And I must say, I'm also aware that that is not the ethic throughout the land. That is not the way all municipalities treat this kind of matter, but it's the way the city of Bellevue handles it. And there are other ways to do it. You know, you could ask them to canvass the people around, share your plans, get some support for it, and get a waiver of that from those people. And then we'll go forward with your plan. There's things that could be done, but the city has not adopted any of those. So moving on, I had another encounter in the street with a couple of people standing by the sign, and it turned out to be the owner and a fellow that turned out to be a builder. And so I started a conversation with them, and I asked Mr. Wu, I said, are you aware of the petition that was circulated? He was. He affirmed that he was aware of it. And I said, I find it kind of odd that you would go forward with this knowing that you have at least 133 people around you that would object to what you're doing. And it did seem to phase him at all. But he offered that he was also aware of the covenant and that he had run it by his attorney and it was no longer enforceable. So I asked him if he had gotten any other bad advice. And he told me that he was also aware that the covenant had been breached in the neighborhood, and that's what made it no longer enforceable. So I told him, I said, I think you're probably in error on 2 counts there, but we left it there. And it was interesting that the builder that he was talking to was nodding his head and affirming everything that I was saying. So I don't know. So we walked away, and I did a little more homework and decided that since the covenant on my property read identical to the covenant on the subject property, and we own some other homes also, and they all have covenants on them, I thought I needed to get to the bottom of this. So I went back to Davidson, Patrick, and Chrislock in Kirkland. You might know them as Kirkland Law. And got an appointment and forwarded the covenant, went up and sat down with Brian Chrislock. And Brian says, you know, Frank, the covenant is still in force. And he said, there's been nothing recorded behind the covenant. There has been nothing done by the government to negate any of the enforcement of this covenant. And he says, it is still a good covenant. And there haven't been any amendments to the covenant by the community, and it has an automatic renewal clause in it. So he also offered that there were no recordings of divisions in Division 4. So with that, he also said that there is a problem though, Frank. He says, I said, what's that? He says, you don't live in Division 4. Yeah, I live right there. And I'm actually in Division 9. And he said, you can bring the action, but it won't go as well as if the owners in Division 4 bring the action. So I went back to one of the people that had been communicating with me, and we've been in contact, Wayne Russell. Wayne, raise your hand so they know who you are. And I shared all this information with Wayne, and Wayne stepped forward and has taken up the torch. And have you gotten your engagement letter yet? Still waiting for your engagement letter. So I'm in $375, and Wayne's going to be in about 1,000 to get the ball rolling on this, because the attorney says the next step in this process is to file a letter with him and ask him to stop. And that's where we are at this point. I was the long point person, so enter Wayne Russell. One of the things I want to say in closing is it's hard for anybody that's not in the trades or in real estate to understand how terribly important something like that is. Because the city is in planning review right now. They're shooting for 35,000 living units. Every rock is no rock is going to be left unturned. They're going to be looking at everything. And, you know, this could spread like wildfire. You could start getting all kinds of stuff showing up, and you wouldn't have a lot of control over it, because the city, while we have lived here, the city has not only adopted us and taken us in through acquisition, but they have upzoned us already. We were 9,600 square feet, and they upzoned us to 72 or 74. I think it's 7,200 square feet.
I think they took us from R3.5 to R5 when they annexed us.
Yeah, I'm using that in, lot size.
Yeah.
But that means that lot actually qualifies for 2 lots if the covenant were in place. Now, I know they're having all kinds of design problems, but it could get spreading like wildfire. Another thing that I learned from the attorney is that the county, the cities, and the state have all been discussing a mass overlay. I have only seen one massive overlay in my career that I support. And that was the one that they overlaid everybody's title and said, no religion, no race, no creed. None of that, any reference to that doesn't count. And that is the example that I can give you as an overlay. But what they're talking about is ignoring all of what we have done in the past and everything we have in allowing duplexes and triplexes to be put on torn down houses. So they're not dividing the lot. That's how they get around that. But we do have also a covenant that says one living unit per lot. So we have to preserve that. And it's done by division. So it's up to people in Division 4 to see if they can squelch that for all of us and get a precedent going here. And, you know, what you don't want to do is you don't want to lose your place at the table. Change is inevitable, but when it comes, you want a chair to sit in so that you can put some regulations on it, put some percentages on how much of it's going to happen, control the parking, get all the cars off the street, yada, yada, yada. It goes on and on and on. Thank you very much. I'll be around for a while.
Any other questions? Frank said that he will stay after the meeting and talk to people about questions that you may have. So next speakers are from SOS, which is Save Our Scales. Alex Hay is a member of that group. It's a small local group that's advocating for redevelopment in Bellevue.
Okay, so I'm Alex. Thank you for letting me come talk to you. I have a couple things that I'm going to be talking about today. In fact, I think if I do this, there we go. Does that make, I need to shrink this down. How do I hide? Get this stuff off my screen. There we go. Nope. Okay, well, we'll ignore that little thing in the corner here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about neighborhood character. As you heard, I'm interested in architecture and urban planning. So I'm going to talk a bit about the elements that go into neighborhood character. And then I'm going to talk about our group, Save Our Scale. It's just a small group of us who are trying to help preserve neighborhood character, even though we know things are going to change. Everybody know that things change. There will be development. We just want to make sure that it's done in a way that's keeps character of our neighborhood or improves character of our neighborhoods. Okay, so starting off. Okay, so me. I've been in Washington actually since 1984, almost 40 years. I've been living in Bellevue since 2002. I've lived in Factoria. I've lived in Somerset. I now have a home in Lake Hills. Interested in architecture, considered it for a career until I saw how poorly it pays for most architects. I'm now an electrical engineer, which has been a pretty good choice. The last few years, I've been doing a lot of reading about urban planning. I've become more involved with what's happening in the city and my own neighborhood and reading about what other countries and other cities have done as they grow. How do they manage that growth? I'm a board member of the Lake Hills Neighborhood Association since January this year. As mentioned, I'm part of the Save Our Scale group, and I'm also part of the current class at Bellevue Essentials, learning how the city works so I can help advocate for my neighborhood. Briefly, I've put Rick in here because he helped develop the slide deck. He's another member of Save Our Scale. He's a working architect. He is not here today. We do have Tim Hay here, who is not a relative despite having the same last name as me. And Tim is a former builder who will be answering some questions when we get to that section. All right, so what is neighborhood character and why is it important? Neighborhood character is basically the blend of things in your neighborhood that give you your community setting. So it's A combination usually of architecture, something called streetscape that I'll talk about, the recreational opportunities, and then the people that live in the neighborhood are also an important part of that character. And so when I talk about neighborhood character, I'm going to tell you a bit more about these elements, about streetscape, about architecture, and some specific stuff about the architecture in this neighborhood, some discussion of amenities, and then discussion of the people who live here in Newport Hills. Newport Hills was established in 1958. You guys probably know that. And I will take this moment to mention Lake Hills was established in 1955, just a couple years earlier. And so some of my slides will actually reference the some Lake Hills material I gathered when I first put this together. A lot of it is very similar architecturally. Streetscape. So what is streetscape? It's the view as you move through the neighborhood. So that combines the things that includes are how wide the street is, 1 or 2 lanes. Is there a sidewalk? Is there a gap between the sidewalk and the street? How far from the sidewalk are the plantings to the structures? Different patterns of sidewalks, trees and landscaping. You know, we've all seen the big boulevard that's 4 lanes and then giant parking lots. Other places you go, there's you know, a 2-lane road with a bunch of trees nearby. They have very different feels. So those go into the streetscape portion of the neighborhood character. Signage, some communities have banned billboards and almost all signage. Other communities have no limits and they make huge signs. And then public art is also a part of this. And the more varied this is, the more character your neighborhood will have. So you don't need all the same thing. It can bring character to your neighborhood to have different feels in different areas. So this is just an illustration. Within the right-of-way, you've got the pavement, you've got the curb, you've got some places to walk, you've got the private lots, different things on the other side. And here in Newport Hills, there's quite a bit of variety in the streetscape. This is a sketch that Rick put in, he really liked, and I have to agree that it's nice. This is actually, if you recognize it, this is the Kirkland waterfront. And this is somebody who is imagining the future of Kirkland, how it might look. So obviously lots of trees, lots of cities around here are trying to increase their tree canopy. Some restaurants that you can walk to, people cycling, plenty of trees alongside of the road. So it gives it kind of a community feel and a walkable feel. Oh, are they not? Screen sharing. Let me see if I can. No, we definitely want everyone to be able to see this. Stop screen. I will share the whole screen. I apologize, those of you who did not see that screen. Share the whole screen, share. Can you see now? Yes? Okay, so I'm going to point to some things that the people in the home audience won't be able to see my pointing. I apologize for that. So if obviously you're all very familiar with the retail center that has some wider roads and sidewalks. There's neighborhoods here that when the community was originally built were done without sidewalks, which was very common at the time. Searching around, I found some neighborhoods up here that do have sidewalks. And so there's quite a bit of variety here. And as you drive around Newport Hills, you can feel that and feel yourself moving between the different developments, which gives it variety and character. So the residential streetscape, here's a couple of examples. We've got a lot of planting between the street and the houses. That's not always the case in some communities. The house comes all the way up to the road. Some top right has some of the older, more original architecture. Bottom left is a little bit newer. This is where they've added the sidewalks. And so this is some examples of the residential streetscape here. Commercial streetscape, you have one strip that has pretty much all of the The commercial stuff is all in one area. So in Newport Hills at the moment, you have primarily residential and commercial. There have been discussions of mixed use, which is popular for a lot of people, and a lot of people find it controversial. So I am going to throw in here, without comment as to whether I like it or not, just an option that has been proposed for this same area that would be a mixed use. And so the advantage of this is that you can get more density and you can usually have more amenities. Disadvantage, obviously, it's a huge change and some people like to keep things the way it is. Anyway, so this is actually one of the proposals for possible redevelopment of this neighborhood. Probably, I found it online as I was researching the neighborhood, and I was looking to see if there was any mixed use in the neighborhood, and this is what came up. Yeah, so, okay, so architecture. That's the size and the style and the positioning of the buildings. So architectural decisions that affect the neighborhood character, the bulk and the mass and the size of the building have a lot of effect on the neighborhood character. They need to be in scale with the other structures within the neighborhood, so the adjacent buildings, and in scale with the buildings that are, you know, more community centered. It's important when you can to preserve some of the old while also allowing new. There are very few communities where every building is 500 or 600 or 700 years old. You know, even in Europe where they're very old, there's constant rebuilding. They've been very good at rebuilding in similar styles and in harmony. But obviously, most of the buildings in this area were not designed to last for 200, 300, 400 years. And so we can expect that there will be development going on in this neighborhood over time. So open spaces between structures has a big effect. Everything crunched together in a city versus spread out in the country. And then there's things in between. So Newport Hills has a feel based on the size of the buildings and the spacing in between them. And then varied street views. One of the things that I really like driving through Lake Hills, or excuse me, Newport Hills, although done similarly in Lake Hills, curved streets, it just gives you a little more variety. If you go to California and look at the suburbs, that you've got these long boulevards, even if it's only a small two-lane road, you can just see for miles. And here they were smart and put little curves in thing, and so it really gives you a feeling of more community. And then varied street views, so no cookie cutter developments. Again, having different architecture, maybe all from the same era, similar styles, but not just the same house over and over and over again, like was done in some places. And so multiple layers of complexity will amplify and enhance the character of your community. So there's a nice original Newport Hills house. It's been nicely maintained. This style of architecture is considered Northwest modern. It was very popular in the middle of the century at the time this community and a lot of Beltview was being built up. It's responsive to the Northwest climate. So the low sloping roofs that are stretched out by the long facade, the wide overhangs protect the walls from all of the rain that we have. So it's actually functional. It's not just decorative. It's actually functional. The floor to ceiling windows in a lot of places, the windows that go all the way up to that sloped ceiling, bringing in more light, very important in our area. Exposed posts and beams, that really helps bring the outdoors to the indoors. Having those exposed posts and the glass that goes all the way up, it really makes you feel more connected with nature, which is wonderful in this place that we live. Carefully placing the house on the property in a way that it fits in nicely to the topology. Lots of horizontal lines, you'll notice. Horizontal lines or vertical lines were really popular in the 50s. Lots had masonry fireplaces. And so I'm gonna just grab one more Newport Hills house. There's another nice mid-century house. So brick, exposed beams, windows that go all the way up, low roof. These are all things that really They're a core of the architecture in this neighborhood for the original homes and very functional and very beautiful. Okay, architectural scale, I mentioned briefly, it's the way the mass and the bulk of a structure fits the context of the neighborhood and the surrounding buildings. And here is an example. This one actually is in Lake Hills of a house that we feel is out of scale. You can see there's a couple of nice older homes here, probably in need of remodeling, maybe a bit of expansion. And then there's this that's just been built next to it. And so this is an example of a house that we don't feel like respects the scale of the neighborhood. Amenities, I'm going to be quick here. I have, I think, about 5 more minutes, and I still have to get into the Save Our Scale stuff, so I'll speed up my presentation a little bit. Amenities, parks, playgrounds, walking trails, open spaces. When Lake Hills was being built, this is actually a flyer. They're talking about all of these things I just mentioned: shopping, churches, heating, sewer systems. We all have those now. That wasn't always the case. Schools. So this is some of the parks, playgrounds, and walking trails in Newport Hills. These are things that give your community part of its feel. I heard earlier people talking about how much they liked being close to the hiking trails. Open spaces, both parks that are more manicured, but also open spaces through the trails. These really give also a sense of the community. You have to travel a little bit to get to your library, but the elementary school and even some of the medical offices that are in the neighborhood, those are all part of what gives your community its feel. The shops and restaurants, you know, we don't get a whole lot of traffic up here compared to, you know, downtown Seattle. And so you get to know the shop owners a little better. You get to know the other people that are in the restaurant, and that can really strengthen your sense of community. Little bit of public art. I had trouble finding slides to put up here of public art, but things that are public art is an important part. And then people, the diversity of the residents and the visitors. So, okay. So, diversity of income. In Newport Hills, about almost a quarter of people households bring in less than $50,000 a year. That's these two combined. And about 54%, so more than half of the incomes are making less or under 100,000. Obviously, that means almost half the people are making over 100 grand a year. There's certainly some, you know, younger tech people with larger incomes, but I do think it's worth pointing out that a quarter of the households are making less than 50,000 a year. So you do have a really diverse community. It's not all wealthy people. And it's a wonderful place for people to be able to live where they're still close to the city, they're close to Seattle, close to the mountains. And so you don't have to be rich to live here, which is great. Diversity ages, almost a quarter of the people, and I will mention this is Newport rather than Newport Hills. This is the city's breakdown of data. So this also does include Newport Shores. Almost a quarter of Newport residents are under 18. About 2/3 are adults, and only 14% of people around here are age 65 or older. And so it does seem to be a place that people are interested in raising families, and I think that's, you know, recognized. The amenities that are here and nice, quiet neighborhoods, great schools, really good place for that. Diversity of ethnicity, 28%, so a little more than a quarter of the people in this neighborhood, this area, are non-white. Okay, and so then to save our scale, the second half of what I'm going to talk about, and I have just a few minutes left, and I think that will be enough. So Tim and I and the other two members of our group, Tim is a builder. Rick was mentioned earlier, he's an architect. I'm just a guy who likes architecture and urban planning. And our fourth member is a retired lawyer. All of us have a similar interest in preserving the scale of homes within our single family neighborhoods. But as you can imagine, a builder and an architect, they're not saying no development. They're just saying, let's develop it sensibly. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're advocating for a few changes in the Bellevue Building Code that would encourage development to maintain the scale in our single family neighborhoods. We aren't addressing condos, we're not addressing, this is for the single family neighborhoods where existing homes already are. Generally like the infill or the bulldoze and rebuild stuff. So right now, it's great having an architect on the team. There's 42 building codes in Bellevue that developers have to follow. We are asking changes, little tweaks to 5 of them. One of them is tree retention. Another one is the side setbacks, how close they can build to the side of the lot. Light plane, I'll explain in a moment. Floor area ratio and the roof height. So starting off with tree retention, just a good example here. We'd like to increase the tree retention and also require that one tree within the front yard setback be maintained. And so you can see top right, a house that's been built recently with trees, and you can feel it just feels a lot more established and it feels homey, where the one on the bottom is just, they bulldozed the lot and put up a box, and you know, maybe 30, 40 years from now, there will be a great tree in the front yard, but there's no reason to not leave one when you're clearing a lot. So this is the first point that we're looking for. Side setbacks. At the moment, you can build 5 feet off of your property line. We want to just tweak that a little bit to 7.5 feet. It's not a big change at the moment. If you, in Bellevue, it's a total of 15, so you can do 5 on one side, you have to keep 10 on the other. We're saying that's a bit silly, make it 7.5 on each side. Your house is going to be exactly the same width as under current code, but no walls 5 feet from the property line, just giving your neighbors a little bit more light. Light plane, so I mentioned this earlier. You can imagine if the sun is at the top left pointing towards the bottom right, both houses get lots of light. If the sun is at the top right pointing towards the bottom left, this poor house on the left-hand side is in shadow. So light plane is the concept that instead of going straight up, you kind of slope your building back, you'll step it back a bit. And so we're suggesting that any sidewall that's more than 15 feet tall needs to be set back to 10 feet from the property line versus the 7.5 that's standard, or the 5.5 that's allowed now. And so that just allows your neighbors to get a little bit more light than they get right now. Floor area ratio. We're suggesting that lots over 10,000 square feet be limited to 40%. So a 10,000 square foot lot would be able to have a 4,000 square foot house. A 20,000 square foot lot would be able to have an 8,000 square foot house. My lot would be eligible for almost 6,000 in Little Lake Hills. It's got a 1,500 square foot house on it at the moment. So no need, I don't see any need, but anyway, we're just saying that there should be some reasonable restrictions on how big a building that you put in. And so basically everyone would get 4,000 square feet and up, but it would put some limits on the most outrageous structures. Roof height, big one here. Right now you can do 35 feet to the ridge of a pitched roof, and we're suggesting that change to 28 feet. Again, this is part of the light plane, making sure that all of the neighbors get light. One thing that this does is this would limit houses essentially to being 2 stories above grade. If you wanted to sink in a basement below that or another floor below that, you could, but it would basically be 2 stories above grade. And so it would just knock off, lots of houses are being built now with like a false 3rd floor just to look bigger, and it would make them knock that off. Occasionally, they also put one room up there to say, oh, we got a 3-story house. But this proposal would basically limit to 2 floors above grade. So soon we'll have a website up. I said that a couple months ago, not quite there. So contact information here if you're interested in more information. My email is on the left, Rick is on the right, and I believe questions will be later, right after the 3rd person? No? Couple of minutes, 2 questions, 1 or 2 questions. And so I can answer some questions, and then Tim, who's the builder, retired builder in Bellevue, if there are any questions. Perhaps I covered everything. Yes.
And tunnels, some of the deciduous.
Currently it's 35.
Yes. Yes, so the question, let me repeat the question. The question was an expressed concern about the height of the buildings and the effect it has not only on the shadow, but on wind tunnels. And then you thought that it was 42 feet. No, my understanding is that right now it's 35 for a pitched roof, and it was slightly less for a flat roof. But it's 35 right now. It does allow 3-story buildings to be built. Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you very much for the presentation and for personalizing it to Newport Hills a little bit.
Sure, sure.
Really appreciate the presentation. And my question was kind of regarding the ceiling pitch roof height. If I see a neighbor constructing a new McMansion per se, what can I do to verify that we are meeting this code?
Okay, so the question from the audience was a concern about houses being built that might exceed the height limit, and what can a citizen do to check to make sure, verify that they're meeting the code. Is that accurate? Yes. Okay, and so the answer to that is that the city checks on all of that stuff. You could certainly, there's my building permit, I believe it is the website. If you search for building permits Bellevue, you can look up any building permit for any lot based on its address. So you can actually see the building permits that are available and contact the city if you have any concerns. Seattle in progress also .com. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. The Bellevue building permits, if you do a Google search for Bellevue building permits, you can see what's been permitted for any property. So do we have time for more questions? I'm happy to also to be here afterwards. I'm not going anywhere. Okay. I did see a few more hands. I'm happy to stay after and answer questions. Great. Thank you all.
Sandi moved from Texas to Newport Hills in 2000, where her husband and I lived, raised our boys, remodeling our 1974 split level until 2016. I was an active member of the community club for many years, including several years as the membership chair. She has a passion for Newport Hills. She still owns the split level, which she loves and will likely move back to that home. She started her real estate career in 2005 and has a passion for helping others. Her approach to real estate is to stay educated and current so that she can educate her clients, empowering them with facts so they can make the best decisions for their unique situation. Welcome, Sandi.
Thank you. All right, so before I begin, does anybody have specific questions they're hoping that I'm going to address? So Heidi, you mentioned you had some things that you were hoping that I would address. Anybody here for, okay, cool. I'll just jump into what I have. So I hope it's what you were hoping that I was bringing. I'm going to start with showing some before and after pictures of a listing that I have on the market right now. It is in Ravenna. It's a gentleman who lived in a home for over 50 years. We just moved into independent living. And he had an offer on his house from a builder at $800,000, and the builder was actually that transaction fell apart because the builder was going to put in actually a triplex. He was going to go backwards, and the city stopped them because they couldn't cut down the trees in the back of the property. So that transaction fell apart, and then the same builder came back with a different plan, rather the same. It was a different builder but came back with a property with a value. I was able to negotiate it up to $725, and which probably at the end of the day was probably an easier situation for the seller. But he said, I don't want to do that. I want to keep the character of the neighborhood. I'd rather try to sell and preserve the neighborhood. So he gave me a budget of $25,000. He was I'll talk about ways to get money if you don't have that kind of cash available, but I'm going to walk you through, and this is currently on the market. We priced it at $850, listed it at $850. The market kind of picked up a little bit this last couple of weeks. Priced it at $850, and we're doing an offer review tomorrow because we've had such strong interest in the property. So, and I'm guessing the property will go between $850 and $900. So here are some befores and afters. So if you look at this side, we've got, it's a darling mid-century with some great windows. And what we did, we took down the curtains and we refinished the hardwood floors and painted. So it was as simple as that. And then staged. One of your best dollars you can spend is with staging. I'm afraid to get out. Okay, so here, I'll go into the official present.
Yeah.
Because we
No, it should be, yeah, it's shown.
Oh, it's showing.
Yeah, just the, arrow.
See, this is what I don't know how to do this part. Okay, so here we go. So this is another view of the before and afters. Just refinishing the hardwood floors, taking down the curtains. This is the after. There was damage to some of the walls, just having a painter come in and do a little bit of repair. The root cause of the damage had been addressed many years ago, so that was important. So it wasn't an actual issue at this point, it was just cosmetic. This carpet in the hallway there was threadbare. You can see we just refinished the hardwood floors all the way there. Here, the kitchen, we didn't do much to it. We painted the cabinets. And the only reason we painted the cabinets was because the paint was really coming off the cabinets, took down the valance, took off the blinds, and we had to put new vinyl down because it was not able to be cleaned. This is an interesting picture. I have the blue square is actually the seller, so didn't want to show him. And so just even that twin bed, and taking the camera angle back, taking off the curtains makes the room look so much larger. And then the bottom left is this guy right here. So just staging and refinishing the hardwood floors. The basements, we have this basement that really, it was just a matter of removing the items from the basement. The gentleman didn't have a dryer, so there were all these scary hanging things, but removing those gave it a whole different feel and just decluttering. So that was my perfect world situation where the client moved out. I say, give me the keys and I can get your home listed in about 4 to 6 weeks in a budget. I think when you downsize after you've been in a home for any period of time, the hardest part, the most difficult part is where are you going to go and what are you going to keep? And regardless of how you sell your home, that's the challenge, right? So the hard work was done. He figured out where he was going to move. He moved to North Home, a lovely community, but it was just 50 years of stuff, and what is he going to keep and how is he going to dispose of it? So he took what he wanted, and then we took care of the rest. So this is a Windermere Ready program that we have. So, okay, so back up. So I sell real estate, I'm with Windermere, and I'm trying to talk very neutrally that any agent can do this. So this isn't necessarily, this is just trying to help provide clarity in what the process provides. Frank's done this for many years. Frank, do you have anything to add to what I've said so far? Okay. So Windermere Ready, Coldwell Banker Bain has something like this. I'm sure Compass does. I know there's a company called Sash that does some similar things. So it's just a way of fronting money to you. It's at a 4% rate. and it's up to $5,000, and you don't pay that back until after close. And there's something like a 6-month grace period. So in most situations, it's pretty straightforward. So up to $50,000. Oh, I did the math before I came here. I think it was like $400. Somebody check my math on that. So it's $2,000. I'm sorry. For $50,000, you pay $2,000, and you just pay it at close. So you really don't feel it at all. So high-level selling steps, I highly recommend getting a home inspection. So a professional home inspection, just as if you were buying the home. I'm going to talk about each of these steps. Home prep. So this is the gamut of what you want to do. Do you want to remodel? Do you want to just clean and stage? And then a deep clean, deep clean. This house that we cleaned, it's the biggest cleaning bill I've ever had. It was $2,300. Best investment we ever paid. It was a bachelor living there for a very long time. And then staging, professional photography, and then price it right. So inspection prior to closing. This is kind of reverse engineering the process. The purpose of this is to find out what is wrong, like to find out any kind of potential issues while you're in control of the process, not the buyer. Then also, if they're big ticket items, okay, that house I was just talking about, knob and tube wiring, oil furnace. We have a sewer issue. We're gonna get multiple offers tomorrow. What I did was I got bids. When buyers have clarity, they make buying decisions. And then also price translates to quality, condition translates to price. We're priced at $850. That's a screaming deal in that neighborhood, but it's priced appropriately. And then if there are active leaks, rodents, or health and safety issues, we're gonna want to address that. Nobody wants to buy a leaking, rat-infested home that's about to kill them. All right. Home prep. So this is the hardest step. It's clearing out your stuff. It's figuring out what do you want to take, and then you have all the emotional ties with your belongings, and your children want it, who wants it. That's the hardest part. There are organizations that help you do this. There are, I know we just moved my mother-in-law into independent living, and her community had a bunch of resources for her to do that. Mindy Gardner, that I know she's got something called a move concierge. I don't quite have that in my business yet. We're getting to it. And then once you figure out what you want, I can take care of the rest. I have companies that'll take donations, dump. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of use for furniture, or use for furniture, especially furniture with fabric. And then there's donation deference. So that's pretty straight. That's probably the hardest step. That sounds the easiest. And then home prep. HGTV makes us think we have to remodel our homes to sell, which is simply not true. In fact, like with that Ravenna house, where would you start and where would you stop? So you have to kind of look at the home holistically. Painting and flooring are my favorite things to do because they're the easiest to do, finite piece, good contractors to get that done. And it's just a bunch of eye candy that really makes the home look great. Sometimes someone says, well, that's not a carpet that maybe the buyer wants. Still, fresh new carpet is always going to look better, and it's going to create a different lens that a buyer is going to look to see your house through. That said, I sold a house not too far from here with burnt orange carpet from the 70s. No problem. It's sold. Let's see. Then you could do other things. You can like paint the cabinets. There's a miracle method you could do in the bathroom. So there's other things you can do. What I tend to find is sellers who've been in their home a long time, the homes actually tend to be pristine and in really good shape. So if that's the case, then let's just clean it up and it's move-in ready and let the next buyer take that journey. And then deep clean, talked about that. All right, staging. This is something that is a little bit hard to wrap your head around. Staging costs can run probably from $2,000 to $5,000, and that sometimes is a hard ticket price for people to swallow. But it's, well, first of all, let's talk about what staging is. So staging is we hire a company and they're going to bring in furniture, art, and accessories. You can do what's called a blended stage where you are living in the home, and it's more like editing. And I do have, especially my older clients don't love it. It's very invasive. And we ask you to bring a lot of stuff out, and then we bring more stuff back in, which can feel perplexing. But the whole idea is to get things to scale and the colors that look good in photos and that sort of thing. And what we're trying to do, again, is we're trying to look good in photos and appeal to the widest population possible. And chances are, if you've been in your home for a very long time, someone who's going to buy your home is probably not your age demographic, and we might be trying to appeal to a younger demographic. I always joke around that none of us look good naked, and that's kind of the idea with staging on vacant homes, is that we all look our best when we're wearing an outfit that fits us right, not too small, not too big, and then we accessorize it with the right necklace or the pocket square and that sort of thing. And that's about it, but it's the best investment you can make. Cleaning and staging are essential. So I saw this quote. This is actually Nancy Chapman, is a colleague of mine, and some people are like, oh my gosh, why would you sell right now? The market doesn't dictate your outcome. You know, your life decisions should be what drives whether you're going to make a real estate purchase or sale. And it's just our strategy changes depending on what that is. And then that's all I have. Are there any questions for Sandi? I can talk about the market. I can talk about cost to sell. I can talk about. Yeah, so let's talk market. So on the east side, what we are, so this is the east. The east side's a unique animal. If you look at King County, it behaves differently. But the east side, we had a huge run up, and then we had to come back, and now we're kind of leveling off. We're at here, what this is telling me is we're at 2.4 months of inventory. Months of inventory is how we take the pulse of the market. So this means that we are basically in a balanced market with a little bit of, balanced market. Less than 2 months of inventory is going to be a seller's market. This number was 2.1 last month, so we're getting a little bit more balanced. Interestingly, year over year, so this is year over year prices, median prices on the east side, we're actually flat or down 1% from last year. But okay, so this is where the media is going to get a hold of things. So we're down, our median price on the east side is actually down 22% since April or March. So we had this huge run up, and now we've come back down. The great news is the last 3 months have been level at 1.35. So that's fantastic. It feels like I'm very active in the market. It feels like we're having some balancing, and I feel like prices are leveling off. But what's going to happen in the next few months is year over year, we're going to have depreciation. And the media is going to grab a hold of that and act like the sky is falling. And my perception, what I see is that we've already come down. So we're just kind of leveling off. And most experts are predicting a little bit of appreciation next year, like 2 to 5%.
So seems like the past couple of weeks, there are a lot of layoffs that have Seattle, the greater Seattle area. This is the tech hub of the nation. So I don't think that would affect our small neighborhood. Since you work in this area, so I was wondering if you could share some knowledge of what kind of buyers will impact in your house. What kind of buyers, in the last few years, buy properties from those tech people or someone else?
I mean, we have, so I don't know specifically the demographic of who buys.
Can you
repeat the question? So you were asking, what is the job profile of of people buying in Newport Hills?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessarily job profiles, like if they're from out of state or builders or from, or demographics, whatever
So just asking the question, I'm repeating the question for those at home. So it's who's buying these homes? Who are these people? So, and the question was too that the tech just announced some layoffs. I don't have a great answer for that, but what I can tell you is just my kind of little bubble of my business is did have a client who worked for Meta. We put our job search on hold for 5 days and he's back at it. This last weekend with elections being over and the CPI with the low inflationary numbers, the stock market went crazy. Interest rates are down about 3/8 of a point. So this weekend was really active for buyers. And I mean, it's like week by week and it's all about supply, demand, and it's really interesting. Not a great answer for you, but I don't think the sky is falling.
It just seems like there are a lot of these tech company employees linked with this site. They like our school district and they like, we're on this site and just on the news, Amazon it's announced they're going to cut off 11,000 jobs, but we have so many hands on people, right? And also Microsoft and also Twitter, on the east side or Seattle area, for about 400. So I don't know if that would impact our house and a market. Just mentioned that it's so home or it's on the market now for 800,000. I wonder that $800,000 in home, how much do you think it would worth if it's like a year ago in November of 2021? How much that?
Okay, that was a lot of it. So what was, okay. I mean, the market is down. I mean, in Seattle, the market isn't as down as it is on the east side, but we are below November 2021 prices right now. So, and I mean, it's okay if you bought in November, if you bought in January, if you bought in March. Here's the thing: you're going to have an interest rate that is like half of what people could get right now, and your monthly payment is probably lower than what most buyers are buying. Ride the wave, it's gonna go back up, you'll be fine. So the whole key is buy what you can afford. It's all about the monthly payment and what you can afford. It's my soapbox. Okay, yeah, you bet. How do you unpost? So I'll stop sharing.
And now it is time for a raffle.
You want to get closer to the mic.
Is this the mic?
Yeah. This is
All right, now it's time for the raffle. Let me see. Tim, will you help me with this? All right. Stick your hand in and then tell us what the number is.
Well, if it isn't mine, it doesn't qualify. 5.
And you win a gift certificate to the Rice Table.
Nice.
Well, thank you guys all for coming out tonight. I think all of our speakers indicated that they'll hang around for a little bit. Do feel free to stay and socialize, and we'll see you again in the spring.